Hey everybody, Jason Levine here, and today we're looking at Kraftwagen. This is a new game by Matthias Kramer. It holds 2 to 4 players and plays in a little over an hour. He's known for other games, Rococo and Glenmore, which he took a lot of mechanics from Glenmore and added it to this game, Kraftwagen. Let's take a look at how it plays. In Kraftwagen, the object is to collect points, and you're going to collect points in many different ways in the course of the game. You're going to collect points from the Grand Prix track, you're going to collect points from bonus cards, you're going to collect points from putting buyers out, and you're going to collect points from selling cars over here. But in order to do that, we have to use the action tracker. The action track here is the mechanic that determines most of the game. So in this case, the yellow player is the first player because they're further back from the action track, and then from there, the green player, the blue player, and the red player would be last. So at the beginning of the game, everyone is going to get one special card, and they will get some bonus power. In this case, whoever take this one, which red has the first choice, could get a card and an engine, or 2 workers and an engine, or a car, an engine, and 2 plus 2 spaces on the racetrack, or an engine 2 race car for the racetrack, and 1 car. After you do that, you're going to take those and you're going to flip it over, which signifies that in your garage, and I'll just put that here as a permanent, in your garage now you have the capability to build a 1-level car and a 1-level engine. The cars go up many levels. As you can see here, the cars go level 1 all the way up to level 7, which are the best cars. The same thing with the engines. The engines, obviously, here's a 2, here's a 7, here's another 7, here's a 5. So the engines also have different levels. You are going to be building those up throughout the course of the game using the cards to build your engines and get better engines. Then, of course, you're going to produce the cars and the engines, which will then lead to displaying cars that the buyers will be able to buy. Let me show you how the action track works and explain all these different actions. On the action track, as you can see here, yellow goes first. Yellow can move to any of these spots. The first 5 tokens are always single actions, the next 4 are doubles, and the last one is a triple action. You get every action on the tile. So the different actions, as you can see, are worker, where you would take a worker from the supply, put it in your board. Grand Prix, where you get to race your car in the Grand Prix track. Buyer, where you get to put out a buyer who buys certain types of cards. Motor, where you get to build a motor in your garage. Car, where you get to build a car in your garage. And research, which is ways to get cards. So the way the mechanic works is as follows. The yellow has a choice. They can take the furthest back action, which means they would go again in 4 turns, or they could jump all the way up to here if this is the one they want. Once they do, then green would go. Let's say green also jumped. Then blue decides that they don't want this or this, and they might jump all the way to here. Then red decides, oh, maybe I don't want this, or they do, and they can go here. Or let's say just red went here. Once they do, they would do this. Now red gets to go again because whoever's in last place always gets to go. So in this case, red might get 2 actions in a row, and then red might jump all the way to here if they want to. So basically you can jump around, jump as far as you want to take the specific action you want for your strategy in this game. So one of the first and very important actions is the cards. The rest of the actions are pretty simple. If I have a worker, I just put a worker on my board. If I have a car, whatever tech level, in this case 1, I would put a 1 car on my board. And if I had an engine, let's say this was a 2, because I have a 2 in my hand right now. So I could either put the 2 engine to upgrade this 1 engine in the Grand Prix, or I could put a 2 engine here. If I don't have space in any of these 3, and let's say I had another engine and I wanted to build something else, another engine, I could just remove 1 and put another engine out. So you're leveling up your engines as you go. Those are the 3 simple actions, obviously taking a worker, building a car, building an engine. The other 3 actions are the ones that are a little bit different and a little bit tricky. One is the Grand Prix. Obviously, you have a Grand Prix number, right? It starts at 1. Let's say he was a 3. I can take my 3 Grand Prix, and my car, the blue car, would go 1, 2, 3 spaces on the Grand Prix. You're competing for that Grand Prix because whoever's first in the Grand Prix will get 7 points at the end of a round, 4 points for second, 2 points for third, and for each complete lap you've done, because your marker will move up. If I had done 0 laps and I move up and I do a full lap, I would now have 1 lap. I'd also get an extra point. If I can do 5 laps in a round, I would get 7 extra points. Interesting thing about the Grand Prix is that if another car is passing you, red, if they went 3, they would go 1, 2, 3. You don't count any spaces that other cars were in, so you're kind of slipstreaming off the other cars, I guess is the best way to describe it. So you don't count. Then if green went 3, green would go 1, 2, or 4. Green would go 1, 2, skip those 3, 4, and be all the way out at the 6th base, even though they only went 4 from the start, because they kind of slipped around both of those cars. That's the way the racetrack works. Very simple. You're just competing to be the farthest along the racetrack. There's a few flag actions in the actions which do that. The cards. The cards are the meat of the game. The cards are very important. As you can see, every turn you get a choice of 2 cards, and then you take one, and the other one you throw into the discard pile over there. When you take a card, it does different things. Any card with a circle, you're going to have to put a worker on from your board immediately. This one, which does 1 car and 1 engine, when you do that, you place a worker, and now you have 2 car and 2 engines, so you could build a 2 engine or a 2 car. Eventually, if you have a lot of cards, you could build a 7 car or a 7 engine if you had enough cards for it. Some of them, like this card, not only do you get to upgrade in the level, but you also immediately get a free engine that you put out on your board. So you also put an engine in your garage. If you don't have a worker at the time, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to wait, and the first time you get a worker, they go on this card before you can do anything else with the worker. So it's important that you have enough workers for your cards, or you will eventually have to put workers on your cards. Let me show you a few more cards here that I think are interesting. Here's some more different kinds. There's a single engine, a single car, a car that gives you a 1 car plus you get a car, a double car, and a double engine. Those are all the basic ones. Obviously, as you go along and you have more and more of these cards, now this guy might have a 5 engine and a 2 car. There's also some instant effects, +5 on the racetrack. Immediately get a car and an engine based on your level into your garage, and immediately take 3 workers. And you're going to need those workers not just for those cards, but I'll show you another thing very shortly that you'll need it for. And then there's a bunch of bonus cards. I will get back to these because some of these will affect things that I haven't explained yet, but I will get back to these special guys. I'll show you a few right now. This one here gives you +1 every time you go on the racetrack. This one here gives you 2 workers and then a card. This one here, whenever you upgrade your engine in your race car engine, you get to move that many spaces on the racetrack immediately. So it's like upgrading your engine and moving on the racetrack. The rest of them I'll explain in a little bit. So that's the action. The last action is the buying action. The buying action is where you're going to put buyers out for cars. And how you're going to get cars is at the end of every turn, if you have cars and engines, not including the Grand Prix engine, because the Grand Prix engine is only for the Grand Prix car, but if you had a car and engine like this guy, obviously this is an extreme example, but he has a 1 car and a 7 engine. He can now take this 1 car and 7 engine and place it at the end of your turn after you do your action. You can do this. You can place it out with 1 or multiple workers, as many as you want, 1 or multiple, and then you're going to put a price. And there's 3 rounds, A, B, and C, and in each round there's a slot of prices. So you might want to put the lowest price 1, and you might want to put the highest price 10. Let's say that this guy really believes this car is going to sell. He's going to put a 10 because he wants to get 10 points for selling that car. So that's the way you clear your board, is by putting out more cars. And now let me show you the rest of these cards. So a few of these, this guy allows you to put a +1 or a +2. There's tokens, and you get 1 of each on cars. This guy allows you to put +1 or +2 on an engine. And then this guy here allows you to swap one of the parts, either the workers, the points, the car. You can swap one once and actually swap back and say, oh, I don't want engines anymore, so instead I'm going to lower my engine from a 7 to a 3, or whatever you want to do. So those are those. Now the buyers, how the buyers work, I explained that buyers will come out. The buyers, basically there's 4 types. When you take a buyer, if you're the first one to take a buyer, you're going to get whatever victory points are here. And if the buyer wasn't used in the last round, there will be double. So you would, in this case, you would get 2 victory points if you put out the car buyer. So what these different buyers do, there's a car, and they will buy in this order. So you can put out this guy second. Let's say this guy came out third. Let's say this guy came out fourth from the buyer actions. These guys will buy cars. The way a round will end is either if 6 cars are out here, the round ends, or if 4 buyers plus 4 more buyer actions happens and the buyer, so in other words, 8 buyer actions or 6 cars will end the round. There's a few buyer card bonuses. This guy allows this multiplier to become 3. This guy allows you to use a 5th buyer, and this guy allows you to put extra victory points on buyers, either a +4 or +2. How the buyers work. The buyers will look at cars. So let's say that there was a car here, this one that we did with a 10, and let's say this one here, let's just make it blue also for the sake of argument. Actually, I'll just make it red. I'm going to take off the token. So let's say we looked at this. This first guy here is going to look for the highest value car. So in this case, the highest value car is the 2 car from red, because the blue has a 1 car. So this guy would buy this 2 car from red. If there was let's say there was also a 6 car out here from another player, then he would buy the 6 car. All he looks at is car prices. If there are 2 cars of the highest value, let's say there were 2 2s out there with the highest, then he would say which one has the lower price. So if this was also a 2, if these were both 2s, then he would look, and if this one had a price of, here, I'll just put out another 6 to show you. If this 6 had a price of 3 and this 6 had a price of 2, then he would pick the car with the price of 2 because it's the lower price. They're always looking to get the best deal, these buyers. So they look for the best deal. This buyer always looks for cars. This buyer looks just for the cheapest price total. Whichever is the cheapest price, they give that price times 2. So they give you twice the price. This guy is looking for the one with the most workers. So in this case, blue has the most workers, 3 workers, because as I said, you could put one or you have to put at least 1, but you can put multiple workers. So this guy looks for workers, whoever has the most workers. Again, if the most workers is tied, it goes to the cheapest value car because these guys want the bargain. And this one looks for the best engine. So if this car hadn't sold, it would see the 7 engine and buy it. But each time a car will sell, then everything that you've put on the cars at the end of the round will move back into the supply that you have to get back. So if you put a lot of workers out, you're going to have to work to get those workers back. If you did cars, you're going to go back. If you put out a car there and it didn't sell because people underpriced you or because they built a better car than you of a car value or a better engine value, then you're stuck with nothing. Your things go away and you get nothing. So you have to be very careful on what cars you put out. But even more important is what buyers are put out, because if you know that you went for the lowest priced car, or if you know that you're making the best car, you're going to put out the buyer that buys cars if you're making a 6 car. If you know that your engine is a 7, you're going to try to get the engine buyer out here to buy your engine 7. So there's a lot of thinking about what kind of buyer you want to put out for what kind of car. The last thing to show you is, and of course, we go through 3 rounds of this. So the game will be 3 rounds. The first round is A, then B is a little bit higher set of chips, and C is an even little bit higher set of chips for the cars. So the cars will become more and more expensive throughout the different rounds as you're able to build bigger cars and get more technology over here. The last thing is little bonus tokens. So in addition to the Grand Prix, which you score at the end of the round, the points you get from this of only the 4, or let's say if 6 cars were out, only 3 buyers were out, only 3 buyers would buy cars in that round. The last thing is these bonus points. So they have bonus points here. You have bonus points for if you do the first person to do 1 lap gets 3. First person to do 2 laps in a single turn or round gets 7. Then you have the first person to build a 3-level car into their garage. First one to build a 6-level car into the garage gets 3 and 7. Same thing here with the engine, a 4 engine and a 7 engine, you get 3 and 7. The first person to put out the second buyer of the same type, so there could be 2 car buyers out, and in that case, you might put a car buyer, and then if I put a second car buyer, I would get 3. The first person to take 3 of the engineers like Daimler or Benz or any of those guys who are doing cars. So any of these guys, the first one to get some of these good guys, Carl Benz, Gottlieb Daimler, Rudolf Diesel, who obviously invented the diesel engine. As well, whoever is the first person to put 2 cars into the sale bin will get 3 points. And the first person to have all of their workers out of the supply and either on cards or in their canteen or on working out there, if you get all your workers out of supply, you're going to get 7 points. So there's a lot of different bonus points you're going for as well. So that's Kraftwagen. I really like this game. The artwork is really cool. As you saw in the overview, there's Art Deco kind of artwork, which kind of fits the 50s theme of building cars. There's also great mechanics. The mechanic that he used in his other game, Glenmore, where you pick where you want to go on the action track, is great. Starting last and deciding, do you want to just move one ahead so you could get many more actions, or do you want to jump way ahead to a double or triple action where you get better actions, but you're going to be giving up a few turns where other people go ahead of you? It's really tough choices, but it's still a pretty light game. It gives you those good decisions, very, very good ones. There's a lot of things you have to look at in this game. You're looking at the racetrack and you're trying to get ahead to get the points there. You're looking at building cars in a certain direction. The cards are very important because if you take certain cards, it will help you with having either better engine capacity or better car body capacity. You also are being careful about your workers because your workers are needed both for building the cars as well as building the parts for the cars, so you have to make sure you're never short on workers. There's so many aspects of this game that you have to maneuver with and make sure that you keep them in balance. And that, to me, is a sign of a good game where everything's in balance. The interesting thing about this one is that it is a light game. It plays in a short amount of time. The decisions, although they're great and every decision is important, every time it's returned it's important, the decisions are still not in the blow your mind spectrum. They're in the lighter end of the Euro spectrum, and to me that's a good thing. I don't think every game has to be a heavy game. In this game, with its the way it's set up, is actually a very, very unique decision-making process, and I highly, highly recommend this game. If you're looking for a midweight, I'd call it a light to midweight Euro. If you're looking for one of those, Kraftwagen is a very good game that I'd recommend, and I give it an awesomeness rating of 7.